The moment your best friend tells you she saw your husband making out with another woman, your whole world stops. Not in a dramatic movie slow-motion way, more like a freeze, like someone reached inside your chest and just paused everything. And then the questions start firing in your head so fast you can barely keep up. Was it true? When? Where? How could I not know? But here's the thing. Sometimes the story she tells you doesn't add up. And when you start pulling at the threads, the whole thing unravels in a way you never expected. I'm 29, so is Sarah. Sarah was my best friend. We met when I was 11 years old, right after my family moved to a new country. My sister-in-law introduced us, and from that moment on, we were pretty much inseparable as kids. As adults, we still shared some friends, but we also had our own separate circles and lives. She knew my husband, of course. She'd known him almost as long as I had since I started dating him when we were in our early 20s. My husband is 31. We've been married for 3 years and we have a 2-year-old. Our life is pretty normal. I work in an office from 9 to 2 with a 30-minute break that I usually use to grab a second breakfast. Sometimes I walk the 5 minutes to my husband's office, sometimes I hit a cafe near my job, and sometimes I have to travel for work to another city. It's not a big deal, just part of the job. Last week I was supposed to travel on Wednesday, but Tuesday night a red alert came through about the weather. Heavy flooding predicted, so my work trip got canceled. I stayed home with our toddler. My husband got up at 6 in the morning to go check on his business, make sure everything was closed up and that the flood protection was in place. By 7:30, he was back home making breakfast. The rain didn't even start until 1 in the afternoon. We literally didn't leave the house until Friday, just the three of us, cozy and boring and completely normal. At 3 on Wednesday, Sarah texted me. She asked if I was home yet because it was flooding in the city where I was supposed to be traveling. I texted back, home safe. That was it, nothing suspicious, nothing weird. Saturday came and Sarah and I go to the same gym class. Afterward, she pulled me aside and said we needed to talk in private. So we went to my car and she sat there in the passenger seat looking serious, and then she dropped it. On Wednesday, she said, I saw your husband with a woman, they were making out, and your kid was in the car. I froze, but only for a second, because the instant she said Wednesday, something clicked in my head. Wednesday, I was home with my husband, with my baby, the whole day, from 6 in the morning until we went to bed. He never left, I never left. There was no time for him to be making out with anyone anywhere. But I didn't say that right away. I asked her 3 times if she was sure it was this past Wednesday. She confirmed it 3 times. I asked her what time. She said around 11 in the morning. I asked if it was during the red alert. She said yes. I asked if she was 100% sure. And then she launched into this whole detailed description. She described my husband making out with some gorgeous, blonde Barbie lookalike in a car. She said my toddler was in the backseat. She went on and on like she was trying to sell me on the story. And I just sat there listening. Not because I believed her, but because I was trying to understand what the hell was happening. Why was my best friend lying to me, and why was she lying so badly? I finally told her very calmly, that's impossible. I was home all day with my husband and my daughter. She got quiet, then she said, oh, maybe I got the day wrong. I asked her again. Are you sure it wasn't a different day? She backtracked, said she might have mixed up the days, said maybe it was the week before, but I knew. I knew she was lying because the week before my husband was with me every single day too. We had a family thing on Saturday, a doctor's appointment for the baby on Monday. I could account for every hour. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I just told her I needed to think and I drove home. That night, I sat on the couch next to my husband watching TV and I didn't say a word. I didn't want to freak him out until I knew more, but my mind was racing. Why would Sarah do this? What did she have to gain? Over the next few days, I started paying attention. I realized that Sarah had been acting weird for a while. She'd been making comments about my marriage. Little things. Like how my husband was too perfect or how we were so cute it was almost annoying. I brushed it off at the time, but now it felt different. I started asking around, quietly. I talked to a mutual friend, someone I trusted completely, and that friend told me something I wasn't ready to hear. Sarah had been telling people that I was unhappy in my marriage, that I'd confided in her about wanting to leave my husband, that she was just looking out for me. None of it was true. I never said any of that, I never even hinted at it. I confronted Sarah a few days later. I asked her straight up why she made up that story about my husband. She denied it at first, said I was overreacting, said I was being paranoid. Then she got defensive, said I was the one who was lying, that I was clearly hiding something. It got ugly. I told her I couldn't be friends with someone who would try to sabotage my marriage. She called me dramatic. Said I was throwing away a decade-long friendship over nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It was a deliberate attempt to destroy my family, and I still don't know why. Maybe she was jealous. Maybe she wanted me single so we could go out more. Maybe she had some weird fantasy about my husband. I'll probably never know the real reason, but I do know this. That moment in the car when she sat there describing a fake scene was the end of our friendship. I walked away and I don't regret it. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones holding the knife, and they don't even have the decency to tell you why. I thought that was the worst kind of betrayal. A best friend lying straight to your face trying to blow up your marriage for reasons you'll never understand. But that wasn't even the half of it, because sometimes the betrayal doesn't come from a jealous friend. Sometimes it comes from the person you're about to marry. I'm 26. My fiancée Jane was 27. We'd been together for 5 years, engaged for one. The wedding was 3 weeks away. We had the venue booked, the deposits paid, the invitations sent. My parents were flying in from out of state. Her mother had already bought her dress. Everything was set. I'm not a big party guy. For my bachelor party, I kept it low-key. A few of my buddies came over to my apartment. We ordered pizza, cracked open some beers, and played World of Warcraft Classic until 2 in the morning. It was perfect. Exactly what I wanted. I went to bed happy, thinking about how lucky I was to have found someone like Jane. The next morning, I woke up to a voicemail. It was from Brian. Brian is married to one of Jane's bridesmaids. I knew him, but we weren't close. He played golf with my dad once at a barbecue. That was about the extent of our relationship. I listened to the voicemail sitting on the edge of my bed. His voice was awkward, hesitant. He said he needed to talk to me about something he saw at Jane's bachelorette party. He said it was serious. He said I should call him back as soon as I could. I called him back immediately. My heart was already pounding. I didn't know what to expect. Maybe she got too drunk. Maybe she made out with someone. I was mentally preparing myself for something bad, but not the worst. Brian told me what he saw. Or rather, what he heard. He said one of the bridesmaids, a girl named Chloe, had been talking to him after the party. Chloe was drunk and upset. She told Brian that at some point during the night, Jane had got hands-on with the male stripper, not just dancing, not just a lap dance. Chloe said she saw Jane give the guy a handjob in the corner of the private room while everyone else was distracted. I asked Brian if he was sure. He said Chloe was positive. He said she was crying when she told him. He said she felt guilty and didn't know what to do. That's why she told her husband, and he told me. I hung up the phone and sat there in silence. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I just stared at the wall for what felt like an hour. My bachelor party had been amazing. I was riding that high, thinking about our future, thinking about how perfect everything was, and then this, a handjob at a bachelorette party with a stripper 3 weeks before the wedding. I couldn't process it. I needed to talk to someone who was actually there. My cousin Megan had been at the party. She'd been friends with Jane since they were kids. If anyone would tell me the truth, it was Megan. I waited until noon the next day to call her. I didn't want to seem desperate or crazy. I wanted to be calm. I called her 5 times, straight to voicemail. That set off every alarm in my head. Megan always answers her phone. Always. I finally got through on the 6th try. She sounded weird, distracted. I asked her straight up if anything happened at Jane's party. She got quiet. Then she said, I don't know what you're talking about. I told her what Brian told me. She didn't deny it. She just said, I didn't see anything. I was in the bathroom for a lot of the night. That's when I knew. If she'd said, no, that's crazy, nothing happened, I would have believed her. But she didn't. She deflected. She made excuses. She was protecting Jane. I didn't confront Jane right away. I needed more time. I spent the next 2 days at my parents' house, barely eating, barely sleeping. I listened to the Doors and Opeth on repeat, just lying in the dark, trying to make sense of it. I kept thinking about the rules we'd set at the beginning of our relationship. No sex with other people. No romantic kissing. That was the line, and she crossed it with a stripper at her own bachelorette party. When I finally called Jane, I told her we needed to talk. She came over to my parents' house looking confused and a little annoyed. She thought I was being dramatic. I told her what I'd heard. She laughed. She actually laughed. She said, Are you serious? That's ridiculous. I would never do that. I asked her directly. Did you touch the stripper? Did you give him a handjob? She stopped laughing. She stared at me for a long time. Then she said, It was nothing. I was drunk. It didn't mean anything. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood up, walked to the door, and opened it. I told her to leave. She started crying, apologizing, saying it was a mistake, that she loved me, that she would do anything to make it right. I told her the wedding was off. I told her I couldn't trust her. I told her to go. She left. And I closed the door and sat down on the floor and finally let myself feel it, the betrayal, the anger, the grief. I had spent 5 years with this woman. I was ready to spend the rest of my life with her. And she threw it all away for a few minutes of attention from a stranger in a G-string. The fallout was brutal. Her family called me, begging me to reconsider. My family was split. Some said I was overreacting, that it was just a stupid mistake. Others said I was right to walk away. I didn't care what anyone thought. I knew what I needed. I called off the wedding. I returned the gifts. I paid back the deposits, and I started the long, slow process of picking up the pieces. It's been 6 months now. I still think about Jane sometimes. I wonder if she regrets it. I wonder if she even understands what she lost. But I know one thing for sure. I made the right call. Because if she could do that 3 weeks before the wedding, what would she have done 5 years in, 10 years in? Better to find out now than later. But sometimes the betrayal is quieter. Sometimes they don't leave you for a stripper. They leave you for no reason at all, and that almost killed me. I'm 32 now. 2 years ago, my ex-fiancé, Jacob, walked out on me after nearly 10 years together. We met in college when I was 22 and he was 23. We were the couple everyone envied, the one that never fought, the one that finished each other's sentences. We built a life together. We bought a house. We adopted 2 cats. We talked about kids constantly. We were actively planning our wedding. I had a Pinterest board with 200 pins. I had already tried on the dress and my mother cried. Then one day he started acting off. It was subtle at first. He stopped saying I love you before he left for work. He started coming home late, claiming he was grabbing drinks with coworkers. He'd spend entire weekends playing video games with his friends instead of spending time with me. I assumed it was his mental health. He'd been struggling since the COVID lockdowns, went through a really dark patch in 2020. I thought he was just having another dip, so I tried to be patient. I brought him dinner while he played. I left notes on his pillow. I told him I was there for him, but it kept getting worse. He stopped sleeping in our bed. He'd stay up all night on the couch watching old action movies, drinking whiskey. I'd wake up at 3 in the morning and find him staring at the ceiling, glass in hand. I asked him what was wrong. He said nothing. I asked if I did something. He said no. I asked if he still loved me. He said of course, always. Then one Saturday morning I sat him down at the kitchen table. I made coffee. I put my hand on his. I said, "Jacob, talk to me. Is everything okay? Are we okay?" Looked at me for a long time. His eyes were red. He looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. He opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. And he said, "I love you, but I'm not in love with you anymore." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just sat there staring at the coffee mug in my hands. The words didn't make sense. We were planning a wedding. We were talking about baby names. We had a vacation booked for next month. How could he not be in love with me? Within a week, he moved out. He left behind 90% of his belongings. His clothes, his books, his guitar, his record collection. He said he'd come back for them later. He never did. Every day I walked past his side of the closet, still full of his shirts, and I felt like I was being erased. I spiraled hard. I stopped eating. I stopped sleeping. I called in sick to work for 2 weeks straight. My boss sent flowers and a concerned email. I didn't open it. I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every argument, every moment I might have missed the signs. I convinced myself there was something deeply wrong with me, that I was unlovable, that I had driven him away and didn't even know how. One night, about a month after he left, I hit my lowest point. I wrote a note. I took a bottle of pills. I was ready to end it. I thought if the person who knew me best could just walk away, then what was the point? The only reason I'm still here is because my friend Carly called me. She knew something was wrong. She drove to my apartment, found me on the bathroom floor, and rushed me to the hospital. I spent 3 days in the psych ward. My parents flew in from across the country. I was ashamed. I was broken, but I was alive. After that, I started therapy. I started taking antidepressants. I slowly rebuilt my life. I got a promotion at work. I made new friends. I redecorated the house. I packed up all of Jacob's belongings and put them in storage. I didn't throw them away. I couldn't. I still hoped he would come back. 2 years passed. I had mostly moved on. I was dating again, cautiously. Then last month, I got a message on Facebook from an old mutual friend. She asked if I'd heard the news. I said no. She said Jacob got married last weekend to a woman named Emily. They were expecting a baby in December. At first, I felt a familiar stab of pain, but then I felt confusion. Jacob had always said he didn't want kids for at least another 5 years. That was one of our few disagreements. I wanted to start trying at 30. He wanted to wait, so how was he already having a baby with someone else? I did something I shouldn't have. I looked up Emily's profile. She was pretty, blonde, yoga instructor. They looked happy in their engagement photos. I scrolled through her timeline and found a post from about a year ago, thanking Jacob for being so supportive during her fertility treatments. And then it clicked. I had always assumed we could have kids. I never got checked. But what if I couldn't? What if he knew something I didn't? I called my cousin, who still talked to Jacob's sister. I asked if there was any reason Jacob might have left. My cousin hesitated, then said, "I heard something about him not wanting to deal with medical stuff, your medical stuff." I went to my doctor the next day. I asked for a full fertility workup. The results came back last week. I have diminished ovarian reserve. My egg count is extremely low for my age. The doctor said I might still be able to conceive, but it would be difficult, maybe require IVF. She asked if I had any history of this. I told her no one ever checked. I sat in my car in the parking lot and cried, not because of the diagnosis, because I finally understood. Jacob didn't leave because he fell out of love. He left because he found out I might struggle to get pregnant and he didn't want to deal with it. He didn't want to be with someone who couldn't give him a biological child, so he trashed our entire future because of something I had no control over. I thought about all those nights I lay awake blaming myself. I thought about the suicide attempt. I thought about the years of therapy, and it was all because he was too cowardly to say the truth. He let me believe I was broken when in reality he was the one who couldn't handle real life. I haven't confronted him. I don't plan to. But I wrote him a letter. I didn't send it. I just needed to write the words, "Fuck off, Jacob." It felt good. I'm not broken. I'm not unlovable. I'm a woman who maybe won't have biological children, and that's okay. I'm getting stronger every day. And I know now the real reason he left was his own weakness, not mine. But that wasn't the only betrayal that family can serve up. Sometimes the knife comes from someone you grew up with, someone you sacrificed everything for, someone who was supposed to be your sister. And that brings me to my sister, or my stepsister, I guess. Her name is Chloe. She's 23 now. I'm 25. We've been family since I was 4 and she was 3 when our parents got married. We shared a room for years. We shared clothes, we shared everything, or so I thought. When Chloe was 14, she got diagnosed with cancer. It was the worst 2 years of our family's life. I quit my high school volleyball team to get a job. The money went to her medical bills. I drove her to appointments. I skipped dances. I gave up my weekends. I did all of it willingly except for the volleyball thing. I threw one tantrum about that, got grounded for a month and got over it because she was my sister and she was dying. You don't hold back for family, she beat it. She made a full recovery. We celebrated. We cried. I thought we were closer than ever. Then I went to college and met Ben. Ben was great. He was funny, kind, ambitious. He studied engineering, I studied nursing. We fell in love fast. He moved in with me after graduation. We lived together for 3 years. We talked about marriage. We talked about kids. I thought he was the one. In July, I came home early from a shift. I had forgotten my lunch bag. I walked into the bedroom and there they were, Ben and Chloe, on my bed in my sheets. The ones my grandmother gave me. I didn't scream. I just stood there. Chloe looked at me with this wide-eyed, frozen expression. Ben scrambled off the bed, grabbing for his pants. I backed out of the room, walked to the kitchen, and called my mom. I couldn't even form sentences. I just kept saying, "She's here, she's in my bed." My mom didn't believe me at first. She said, "Maybe you misunderstood, maybe it's not what you think." I said, "Mom, I saw them, they were naked on my bed." She went quiet, then she said, "I'll talk to her." Ben moved out that week. Chloe sent me a text apologizing, saying she was drunk, saying it was a mistake. I didn't respond. I needed space. I thought that was the end of it. Then, about a month later, Chloe called me. She asked if we could meet for coffee. I agreed because I wanted closure. I wanted to hear her say she was sorry face to face. I wanted to believe we could repair something. We met at a cafe downtown. I ordered a latte. She ordered a chai. She looked nervous. She kept fidgeting with her napkin. Then she said, "Ben and I are in love. We're dating for real. I wanted to tell you before we made it official on social media." I didn't say anything. I just stared at her. She kept talking something about how they had a connection, how it wasn't just physical, how she hoped I could be happy for them. She actually said those words, "happy for them." I stood up. I left my latte on the table. I walked out. I didn't pay for my drink or hers. She Venmoed me later that night asking for $6 for the chai she ordered while telling me she was dating the man I caught in my bed. My parents called me to their house the next weekend. They sat me down at the dining room table. My stepmom started talking about how Chloe had been through so much with the cancer, how she deserved to be happy, how I needed to be the bigger person. My dad sat there with his arms crossed, nodding. I said, "She slept with my boyfriend in my bed while we were still together." My stepmom said, "She was young, she made a mistake, but now they're in love." I told them I couldn't accept it. I told them it was a betrayal I couldn't just forget. My dad said he was disappointed in me. He said he expected more from his daughter. I left their house that night and didn't speak to any of them for 3 weeks. Then my dad called. He said he wanted to take me to dinner, just the two of us. He wanted to talk things through. I agreed. I was hopeful. I thought maybe he was coming around. I drove to the restaurant, a nice Italian place he'd picked. I sat at the table for 45 minutes. He never showed. I called him, no answer. I called my stepmom. She said, "He's not coming. He thinks you need more time to think about things." He stood me up. My own father stood me up. A few days later, my stepmom sent me an email. It was long. It was detailed. It talked about family loyalty. It talked about forgiveness. It talked about how Chloe's cancer had changed her, made her more fragile, more deserving of care. It said I was being selfish. It said I was holding a grudge for no reason. It said if I couldn't support Chloe and Ben, maybe I wasn't the daughter they thought they raised. I didn't respond. I blocked all of them. I changed my phone number. I moved out of the apartment I shared with Ben and found a new place on the other side of the city. I started therapy. I focused on work. I rebuilt my life from scratch. Months passed. I heard through mutual friends that Chloe and Ben got married. My parents threw them a big wedding. I wasn't invited. I didn't expect to be. Then about a year ago, Ben's sister reached out to me. She said Ben was miserable. She said Chloe was controlling and jealous. She said Ben regretted everything, that he had made a huge mistake, that he wished he could go back and change things. She asked if I would be willing to talk to him. I said no. I thought about it for a few days. I thought about how he destroyed our relationship. I thought about how Chloe watched me hurt and did nothing. I thought about my dad sitting in that empty restaurant, choosing not to show up. And I realized I didn't owe any of them anything. Not my time, not my forgiveness, not my presence. I heard recently that Chloe and Ben are in marriage counseling. I heard my parents are stressed about it. I heard my stepmom is telling people she wishes they could all just get along. But I'm done. I have a new boyfriend now. He's kind, he's patient, he knows my story. He doesn't push me to reconcile. He just holds my hand and tells me I deserve better. And he's right, I do. I don't know if I'll ever speak to my sister again. I don't know if I'll ever forgive my parents. But I know one thing for sure, I didn't owe them my pain. I didn't owe them my silence. And I certainly didn't owe Chloe that $6 for her stupid chai. But sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who try to burn your life down. I learned that the hard way with Sarah. Sarah had been my best friend since I was 11 years old. We met through my sister-in-law right after my family moved to a new country. I was this scared little immigrant kid who didn't speak the language, and Sarah was this loud, confident girl who decided I was going to be her friend whether I liked it or not. I liked it. We grew up together. We shared secrets, clothes, dreams. She was at my wedding. She was the first person I called when I found out I was pregnant. She held my hand when I gave birth to my son. I trusted her with everything. Now I'm 29. My husband is 31. We have a 2-year-old son. Life is busy but good. I work in an office from 9 to 2 with a 30-minute break around 11. Sometimes I go to a cafe near my job. Sometimes I walk 5 minutes to my husband's office and have lunch with him. It's a nice routine. Sarah and I still talk almost every day. She knows my schedule. She knows when I have to travel for work. We share a gym class on Saturdays. Last week I had a work trip planned for Wednesday. I was supposed to drive to a city about 2 hours away for a meeting. But Tuesday night, a red alert came through about the weather. Severe flooding expected. The highway was going to be dangerous. My boss canceled the trip. I stayed home with my son. My husband woke up at 6 in the morning to go check on his business, put up flood barriers, make sure nothing would get damaged. He was back by 7:30, made breakfast for all of us, and we spent the whole day inside. It didn't even start raining until 1 in the afternoon. We watched movies, we played with blocks, we napped. It was boring and perfect. Friday we finally left the house. Saturday morning I went to our usual gym class. Sarah was there. She seemed off, quiet, didn't make eye contact. I asked if she was okay and she said we needed to talk in private. So after class we went out to my car. We sat in the front seats. She turned to me with this serious face and said, "On Wednesday I saw your husband with a woman. They were making out and your kid was in the car." I felt like all the air got sucked out of the car. My heart stopped, my hands went numb. I stared at her. She kept talking, describing some blonde woman with a Barbie body. She said she saw them in a parking lot near the grocery store. She said my son was in the back seat. I asked her, "Are you sure it was this Wednesday?" She said yes 3 times. "What time?" I asked. "About 11 in the morning." I asked if it was during the red alert when the whole city was basically shut down. She said yes, and that's when it clicked. I was home with my husband and son at 11 on Wednesday. We were sitting on the couch eating granola bars. I had a photo on my phone of my son wearing a saucepan on his head, taken at 11:15. My husband was in the background laughing. I had proof. She was lying, but I didn't say that yet. I just asked, "Did you actually see this happen or did someone tell you?" She got defensive. "I saw it with my own eyes. I was driving by. I know what I saw." I said, "Sarah, I was home all day Wednesday. The trip was canceled. My husband was with me. We didn't go anywhere." She blinked. "What? No, you told me you were traveling." "I was supposed to, but the red alert canceled it." "I texted you home safe on Wednesday afternoon, remember?" She went pale, then she started backpedaling. "Maybe it was a different day, maybe I got the date wrong, but I saw him, I swear." I asked her to show me the exact location on a map. She couldn't. She said it was too dark. I asked why she didn't take a photo. She said she didn't have her phone. I asked who else was there. She said nobody. That's when I knew for sure. I told her I needed to go. I drove home shaking. I told my husband everything. He was confused, then angry, then just hurt. He said, "Why would she do that?" I didn't have an answer. I didn't confront Sarah again that week. I needed space, but she kept texting me, "Are you okay? Did you talk to him? I'm just looking out for you." I ignored her. Then on Monday, I got a call from a mutual friend. She said Sarah had been telling people that I was in denial, that my husband was cheating, that I was too weak to leave. I finally called Sarah. I said, "Why are you spreading lies?" She started crying. She said she was trying to protect me. She said she was worried I was being naive. She said she loved me. I said, "You tried to destroy my marriage. You wanted me to believe my husband was unfaithful. You wanted me to leave him. Why?" She didn't answer. She just kept saying she was sorry. I hung up. I did some digging. I asked around. Turns out Sarah had recently gotten divorced. Her ex-husband left her for a younger woman. She had been bitter. She had been jealous of my happy marriage. She told a friend she wished she had my life. She thought if she could break us up, I would be single like her and we could travel together, hang out more, be the old friends we used to be. She didn't see me as a person. She saw me as a prop. I blocked her number. I stopped going to that gym. I told my family what happened. My husband was furious. He wanted to call her to yell at her. I said no. I didn't want to give her the attention. It's been a couple months now. I still think about Sarah sometimes. I wonder if she ever really cared about me or if I was just someone she could manipulate. I wonder if she even believed her own lie, but I know one thing. When I got home that Saturday, I hugged my husband tighter than I ever had. I held my son and cried. And I promised myself I would never let anyone make me doubt the people I love. So when you hear a story like that, you think, wow, that's insane. But it happens. It happened to me, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. But at least I still have my family. At least I still have my truth. But some people don't even get that much warning. Some people find out their whole wedding night was a lie before they even got to say I do. And that's a different kind of pain. I never thought I'd be the guy who gets that phone call, but I did, and it came on what should have been one of the best nights of my life. I'm 26 years old. My fiancée, Jane, she's 27. We had been together for almost 4 years. We met through mutual friends at a bar, hit it off immediately, and within 6 months we were talking about marriage. She was funny, ambitious, and she loved me in a way that made me feel like I could do anything. We had boundaries, though. From the very beginning, we agreed that any sex or romantic kissing outside the relationship was a complete deal breaker. No exceptions, no gray areas. We were both serious about that. We built our trust on that. So when we got engaged last spring, I was on top of the world. We planned a wedding for the following summer. Her family was traditional, so there were separate bachelor and bachelorette parties. I kept it low-key. I'm not a party guy. I invited a few friends over to my apartment. We played WoW Classic, ordered pizza, drank some beer. It was perfect. I went to bed that night feeling happy and secure, thinking about how lucky I was. The next morning, I woke up to a missed call from a guy I barely knew, one of the bridesmaids' husbands. Let's call him Mark. He didn't leave a voicemail, just a text. Call me when you get a chance, important. I called him back around 10. He sounded nervous. He said, hey man, I don't know how to say this. I saw something at Jane's bachelorette party that you need to know about. My stomach dropped. I asked what he saw. He said, I think she was sexual with the stripper, like a handjob. I asked if he could be mistaken. He said no. He said he was 100% sure. He told me he overheard some of the bridesmaids talking about it after the party, and one of them was clearly feeling guilty, so she told her husband, who then told Mark, and Mark decided I needed to know. He didn't have video or photos, just a story, but he insisted it was true. I hung up and just sat there. My hands were shaking. I had just had the best night of my life, and now I was being told the woman I loved had crossed the line that we had both agreed would end everything. I didn't know what to do. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just shut down. Jane didn't live with me. She was staying at her parents' house that night, so I knew she wouldn't show up unannounced. I spent the whole night lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the doors and Opeth, trying not to lose my mind. I kept hoping it was a misunderstanding, a mean prank, anything. The next day at noon, I called my cousin. She had been friends with Jane since childhood, and she was at the bachelorette party. I needed to know if she saw anything. I called 5 times, no answer, red alarms going off. When she finally picked up, her voice was shaky. I asked flat out, did Jane do something with the stripper at her party? She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I don't know, I was in the bathroom when it happened. But some of the girls were talking about it after. They said she was really drunk. They said it was just a handjob, but I don't know for sure. That was when everything changed. I had been holding on to a sliver of hope, and she just crushed it. I thanked her and hung up. I sat in my car for an hour just breathing. I decided I needed to hear it from Jane. I called her and said we needed to talk. She came over that evening. She looked happy. She was still riding the high of the party. I didn't even sit down. I just looked at her and said, I know what happened at your bachelorette party. Her face went white. She didn't even try to deny it. She started crying immediately. She said she was so drunk she didn't know what she was doing. She said the stripper was really aggressive and she just went along with it. She said it didn't mean anything. She swore she loved me. I asked if she gave him a handjob. She nodded through tears. I didn't scream. I didn't yell. I just said, we had a deal. She begged. She pleaded. She said she would do anything. She said she would go to counseling. She said it was a mistake, but I couldn't hear it. All I could think about was the phone call, the dark ceiling, the music. I told her I needed space. I packed a bag and went to my parents' house. I holed up there for a week. I didn't answer her texts or calls. My parents knew something was wrong, but I couldn't bring myself to explain. I just sat in my old room, staring at the posters on the wall from high school, feeling like my whole future had been ripped away. After a week, I called off the wedding. I told Jane it was over. She cried for hours. She sent me long texts about how she would never forgive herself. She said she understood if I couldn't forgive her, but she hoped I would. I couldn't. It wasn't about the handjob. It was about the trust, the boundary, the thing we agreed we would never cross, and she crossed it. On the night before we were supposed to celebrate our commitment to each other. That was 2 years ago. I'm in a better place now. I have a new girlfriend. She knows the story. She says she can't believe someone would be that stupid. I laugh about it sometimes, but not really. Because the thing is, I loved Jane. I really did. And she threw it all away for a moment with a stranger in a strip club. But you know what? Some people don't even get a warning. Some people spend a decade with someone, planning a future, trying for a baby, and then one day their fiancé just walks out the door. No explanation, no closure, just a quiet, I love you but I'm not in love with you anymore. And that's a different kind of pain. That's what happened to a friend of mine. She told me her story, and it made me realize that betrayal can come from anywhere. Even from someone who swore they'd never hurt you. Her name was Emily. She was 32, had been with her fiancé Jacob for almost 10 years. They met in college, moved in together after graduation, and built a life. They were actively planning their wedding and had finally decided to try for a baby. She was so excited. She thought everything was perfect. Then Jacob started acting weird. He stopped saying I love you before work. He started going out drinking with his friends more often, coming home late and smelling like cheap beer. She figured it was a rough patch. He had been struggling with his mental health since the pandemic, so she tried to be patient. She sat him down one day and asked if everything was okay. He brushed it off. She asked again, are we okay? And he just looked at her with this empty expression and said, I love you, but I'm not in love with you anymore. Within a week, he moved out. He left behind 90% of his belongings. She would walk through the apartment and see his jackets hanging in the closet, his coffee mug in the sink, his books on the shelf. Constant reminders that he was just gone. She spiraled hard. She told me she tried to end it all. She went to the hospital, barely made it. Her friend drove her there. She spent days in a psych ward, staring at white walls, trying to figure out what she did wrong. She didn't know. She still doesn't know, not really. A few months later, she ran into one of Jacob's old coworkers. The guy told her, you know he left you because you couldn't get pregnant, right? She froze. She had never been diagnosed with infertility. They had only been trying for a few months. She confronted Jacob through a mutual friend and he confirmed it. He said he wanted kids and he didn't want to wait around for something that might not happen, so he left. No conversation, no doctor's appointment, no support, just abandonment. Emily is doing better now. She has a new partner who treats her like gold. But she told me she still has nightmares about that apartment, about the empty closet, about the hospital bed. And I told her he didn't deserve you, he was a coward. So yeah, I guess that's the thing about weddings and betrayals. They come in all shapes: a handjob at a bachelorette party, a best friend lying about an affair, a sister sleeping with your ex, a fiancé running away from the possibility of infertility. It all hurts the same. It all leaves a scar, but you move forward. You learn to trust again, you find people who actually see you, and you don't look back. But some people don't even get the chance to look back, because the betrayal comes from someone you grew up with, someone you sacrificed everything for. That's what happened to me. I never thought my own sister would ruin my life, but here we are. I was 25 when I walked into my bedroom and saw my fiancé Ben fucking my stepsister. We had been together for 6 years, lived together for 3, and I thought we were building a future. She was 23 at the time, the girl I had helped raise since she was 3 years old. Let me back up. My dad married her mom when I was 4 and she was 3. We grew up as sisters. We shared a room for years. I taught her how to ride a bike, helped her with her homework, held her hand during thunderstorms. She wasn't just a stepsister, she was my sister. When she was 14, she was diagnosed with cancer. It was aggressive. She spent 2 years in and out of hospitals, going through chemo, losing her hair, throwing up every single day. My parents were a wreck. They asked me to step up and I did. I quit my high school volleyball team, which I loved, to get a job so I could help pay for her medical bills. I drove her to appointments. I sat with her during treatments. I gave up dances, parties, sleepovers. I didn't complain, not really. I threw one tantrum about volleyball and my parents shut that down fast, but I got over it. She was sick. She needed me. She made a full recovery by the time she was 16. We celebrated. Life went back to normal. I went to college, met Ben, fell in love. He was sweet and funny and he made me feel safe. We graduated, moved in together, and everything was good. She was happy for us, or so I thought. Then in July, I came home early from work. I had a headache, so I left the office at 3 instead of 5. I walked into the apartment, called out for Ben, didn't get an answer. I figured he was in the shower. I walked into our bedroom and there they were on our bed in our sheets. She was on top of him and he was holding her hips like he had done 1,000 times with me. I stood there for maybe 5 seconds. She looked up and saw me and her face went red. He pushed her off and started stammering, "It's not what it looks like." I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I just said, "Get out of my house." She ran out of the room, grabbing her clothes. He followed her. I stood in the bedroom doorway and watched them scramble. I felt like I was floating above my own body. When the door closed behind them, I sat down on the floor and stared at the wall for 3 hours. The next day, I broke up with Ben. He cried and begged and said it was a mistake. I told him it didn't matter. I couldn't look at him without seeing her on top of him. She apologized. She sent me a long text saying she was so sorry, it just happened, she was drunk, it didn't mean anything. I didn't respond. She stopped texting after a few days. I thought she was giving me space. I needed space. I needed a lot of space. Then a few weeks later, she called me. She asked if we could meet up at a restaurant near her place. I said yes, hoping she wanted to apologize in person. I was still hurt, but she was my sister. I was willing to try to forgive her. We sat down at a table. She ordered water. I ordered coffee. She looked nervous, but I didn't think much of it. Then she said, "I didn't bring you here to apologize." I asked what she meant. She took a deep breath and said, "Ben and I are in love. We want to be together. I'm telling you this as a courtesy before we start posting photos online." I stared at her. I couldn't speak. She kept talking, saying they had been seeing each other for months, that he was the one, that they were going to move in together. She said she hoped I could be happy for them. I stood up. I didn't say a word. I walked out of the restaurant and left her sitting there alone. I didn't pay for my coffee. She later sent me a Venmo request for her half of the bill. I ignored it. My parents called me the next day. They told me I was being selfish. They said she had been through so much with her cancer and now I was making her life harder. They said I needed to support her relationship because she deserved happiness after everything she had been through. I said she slept with my fiancé. They said she was young, she made a mistake. Ben is a good guy, they're good together. I asked if they had forgotten about me. They said they hadn't, but she needed me more. I hung up. That weekend, my dad invited me to dinner. He said he wanted to talk one-on-one, no mom, no sister. I agreed. I thought maybe he would listen. I dressed up, drove 40 minutes to the steakhouse he picked, got a table and waited. I waited for an hour. He never showed up. I called him 5 times, no answer. I called my mom. She said he had changed his mind and went to help my sister set up her new apartment with Ben. That was when everything changed. I realized I didn't have a family anymore. I had a sister who took my partner, a dad who couldn't even show up for dinner, and a mom who enabled it all. I cut contact with them for a year. I moved to a new city. I got a new job. I started therapy. I learned that I deserved better than people who use someone's cancer as an excuse to treat me like garbage. I heard through mutual friends that Ben and my sister are still together. They got engaged last year. My parents are ecstatic. They post pictures of them on Facebook like they're the perfect couple. They never mention me, and that's fine. I don't need them. I built my own life. I have friends who actually see me. I have a partner who wouldn't betray me. And I have the quiet satisfaction of knowing that I was right. She didn't deserve my sacrifices. She didn't deserve my childhood. And she definitely didn't deserve my forgiveness. So yeah, that's my story. Betrayal comes from the people you trust most. Sometimes it's a best friend lying about seeing your husband with another woman. Sometimes it's a fiancé at a bachelorette party. Sometimes it's a stepsister in your own bed, but the healing is the same. You walk away, you rebuild, you don't look back. I sat there in my car in the parking lot after gym class and I just stared at her. Sarah, my best friend since I was 11, was telling me she saw my husband making out with some blonde woman on Wednesday. She said my 2-year-old was in the car. I asked her 3 times if she was sure it was this Wednesday. She said yes 3 times. She said it was around 11 in the morning. She said it was during the red alert weather warning. She described the woman in detail: long blonde hair, tight dress, tall, looked like a Barbie doll. I waited. I let her finish. Then I said, Sarah, I was home with my husband and my daughter all day Wednesday. We never left the house. The weather was too bad and my work trip got canceled Tuesday night. Her face went blank for a second. Then she said, no, I saw him. I saw him, I said. You couldn't have. He was making breakfast at 7:30 and we stayed inside until Friday. We didn't even go out for a walk. She started stuttering, saying maybe it was another day, maybe she got the date wrong, but she had been so specific, so sure, and I knew then that she had made it up. I didn't know why. She had been my best friend for 18 years. We had been through everything together: her parents' divorce, my miscarriage, her breakup with that guy who cheated on her. I had always been there for her. And now she was trying to blow up my marriage with a lie so stupid it didn't even hold up for 2 minutes. I told her I needed to go home. She grabbed my arm and said, please don't tell your husband. I was just trying to look out for you. I thought I saw something. I said, you didn't see anything, you lied, and I don't know why. I drove home with my hands shaking. My husband was in the kitchen making dinner. He looked up and said, you okay? You look pale. I sat down at the table and told him everything. He listened, not angry, just confused. Then he said, she's been acting weird lately. She kept asking me about your work schedule when you weren't around. Like she'd text me asking if you were traveling next week. I thought it was just her being a worried friend. That was when everything clicked. She had been trying to find a day when I was out of town so she could make the lie work, but I happened to stay home because of the storm. Her plan fell apart. I decided to confront her. I called her that night and I said, Sarah, why did you lie? Why are you trying to hurt my marriage? She broke down crying. She said she was lonely. She said I had changed since I got married and had a baby. She said we never hung out like we used to and she was jealous. She thought if she could make me doubt my husband, I would leave him and then she'd have more time for me. She thought I would become a single mom and we could travel together like we used to before I got married. I was speechless. She almost ruined my life because she was jealous of my marriage. I told her I needed space. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just said, you need help, and I hung up. My husband wanted to expose her to our friend group, but I said no. I didn't want the drama. I just cut her off completely. Blocked her number, blocked her social media, stopped going to the gym class at the same time. People asked what happened and I just said we grew apart. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of a reaction. But I learned something that day. Some people will lie to your face because they can't stand seeing you happy. And the closest ones are the most dangerous. I thought I was overreacting when I got that phone call. My buddy from work, this guy I barely knew outside of grabbing lunch once in a while, called me at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night. I had just finished playing World of Warcraft Classic with some old college friends, my non-bachelor party, bachelor party, just pizza and Mountain Dew, and laughing at the same jokes we've been telling for 10 years. I was in a great mood. Jane was at her bachelorette party. She'd been planning it for months. I hadn't heard from her all night, which was normal. She was probably drunk and dancing. I didn't want to be that clingy fiancé texting every hour. Then my phone rang. I saw the name Mark. He was married to one of Jane's bridesmaids, a woman named Debbie. I had only met him a handful of times. He sounded weird, like he was trying to stay calm, but the words were coming out too fast. He said, hey man, I don't know how to say this, but I saw something tonight I think you need to know. I asked what he meant. He said, at the bachelorette party, they had a stripper, a male stripper, and I walked into the living room to get a drink and I saw Jane. She was in the corner with him. She was giving him a handjob, I'm positive. I didn't want to believe it, but I saw it. I didn't say anything for a long time. I thought maybe I misheard him. I asked him to repeat himself. He did same words, same shaky voice. I said, could you have misinterpreted? Maybe they were just dancing and it looked like something else. He said, no, I saw her hand on him. She was facing me. She saw me and she froze. Then she pulled away. I left right after that and called you from my car. I thanked him and hung up. Then I just sat there on my couch. My cat jumped on my lap. I didn't even feel her. I stared at the dark TV screen. Jane and I had a deal from day one. No sex with other people, no kissing, no anything. If either of us wanted to break up, we'd break up clean, no cheating. That was the only hard line. I didn't sleep that night. I laid in bed and listened to music, the Doors, Opeth, anything dark that matched the spiral in my head. I kept replaying the phone call. I wanted to believe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe Mark was drunk. Maybe he saw something innocent and his brain filled in the gaps, but he sounded so sure. The next morning, I waited until noon to call my cousin. She had been at the party too, and she was friends with Jane since childhood. I figured she would tell me the truth. I called 5 times, she didn't answer. I called a 6th time voicemail. I texted her, call me as soon as you get this, it's urgent. Nothing, red alarms going off in my head. Finally, around 3 in the afternoon, she called back. Her voice was quiet. She said, I know why you're calling. I said, just tell me, did you see anything? She paused. Then she said, I didn't see it myself, but Debbie told me she saw something at the party. She was freaking out. She made Mark call you because she didn't want to be the one to say it. I asked, so it's true? Jane gave a stripper a handjob. My cousin said, I don't know for certain, but Debbie is not a liar. She wouldn't make something like that up. I hung up. I drove to Jane's parents' house. She was still staying there after the party. I knocked. Her mom answered, said Jane was still asleep. I said I would wait. I sat on the porch for an hour. When Jane finally came downstairs, she looked hungover but happy. She saw my face and her smile faded. I said, we need to talk. We went into the backyard. I told her exactly what Mark said. She went pale. She started crying. She said, I was drunk. I didn't know what I was doing. It just happened. I didn't mean to. I love you. I asked her, did you touch him? Yes or no? She nodded. She couldn't look at me. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just stood up, walked out of the backyard, and drove to my parents' place. I stayed there for a week. I didn't answer her calls. I didn't answer anyone's calls. I just sat in my old room, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how someone who agreed to marry me could do that. How a night of dancing and drinking could be worth throwing away 5 years together. I called off the wedding. I told her parents. I told my parents. I told the venue. I told everyone. Jane begged me to reconsider. She said she would do anything, go to therapy, stop drinking, never go to another party. I said, the trust is gone. I can't unsee what I know. It's been 6 months now. I moved to a